Alright, one of my favorite horror movies is Child's Play. Now, Child's Play, many of you have probably seen the movie, or at least know something about the movie. Child's Play is arranged around a doll named Chucky. Now, Chucky, uh, the character of Chucky was a serial killer, like basically a homicidal maniac named Charles Lee Ray. And Charles Lee Ray, I think he was supposed to be like the Lakeside Strangler or something, or basically he was like, portrayed as a bad guy who had went out and did all these horrible things. The police caught up with him in a store, like a toy store or something. There was a shootout. Before he dies, he manifests his incarnation, his soul, his energy, into a doll. Later on in the movie, you learn that he was a practitioner of voodoo, and there was another character in the movie. I forget the guy's name, but I think the guy in the movie's name was John, but I forget who was the actor who played the part. He was like this voodoo priest guy, and he had taught Charles Lee Ray everything. But anyway, so the doll is still in the package, or some peddler ends up finding the doll, basically like a homeless guy. He takes the package with the doll and he's out selling it. Now Andy's mom, the little boy in the movie, she wants to get him a doll. He wants the good guy doll. He keeps saying, I want a good guy, I want a good guy, I want a good guy doll. And this kind of gets into the bad guy game that I was talking about earlier. So he wants a good guy doll. And he gets the good guy doll. And the good guy doll seems to be really cool. He's playing with the doll, he's interacting, but the doll seems to have a life of its own. It starts interacting with the household as if it was a real person. Later on, the woman gets suspicious, and then she discovers there's something wrong with this doll. Now, this is after Andy's babysitter, Maggie, who was a co-worker of Andy's mother in the film at this, basically like a shopping mall, like a Sears type place or something like a JCPenney or something. And so the babysitter, Maggie, dies. The mom's suspicious. She's like, wait a minute, there's something going on with this doll, Andy's not acting right. So she discovers there's no batteries in the doll. And he's been talking and doing all this stuff with no batteries. So she's like, wait a minute, tell me who you are, I'm going to burn you. And she has the doll, and the doll comes to life. The doll comes to life, and he's just like, you stupid bitch! And, that starts the scenario for the whole movie. And the police, there was a cop, I forget his name, he's a well-known actor. But he doesn't believe the woman. He thinks the woman's crazy, but inevitably he has to tell her he was the guy who killed Charles Lee Ray. In the end, they discover that Andy was right all along. But in the movie, there's one part in the movie where they put Andy into an institution, and he's saying, Chucky's coming to get me, Chucky's coming to get me. And Chucky does come and try to get him in the institution, right? And nobody in the institution believes him, but one of the doctor guys, he takes Andy into this room and tries to shoot him up with this stuff. And if you pay attention in the movie, they got this one head thing that they can put on people, and it's like electroshock technology. That was an MK Ultra room. In the movie, pay attention to the room. What kind of an institution for children would have items like that? Electric shock and all those types of things. So the movie was spilling a little bit for you right there if you pay attention about the MK Ultra thing. But anyhow, the metaphysical breakdown parallels with Andy's consciousness, his ego, and he wants this good guy. He wants this good guy. He wants this good guy. And Andy basically isn't content with himself. He's a real good child. But his mother works a lot. He seems to be kind of a loner. He doesn't seem to interact with children very much. And you see this in the school scene where he goes to school. And one day he takes Chucky with him. And he takes Chucky out. And they're in Chicago. I love this movie because it shows Chicago. The other movie that shows Chicago is that Adventures of Babysitting or whatever. With that one chick who was in that movie, Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. Or Leaving for Las Vegas. The one with Nicolas Cage. She was the chick who played in the Babysitter Adventure. But anyway, that was another Chicago movie. But this one is in Chicago. Very nice scene and all that. But anyway, so he thinks Chucky's the good guy, right? I want a good guy, I want a good guy. And Chucky ends up being the bad guy. The worst guy you can have in the world as a good guy, the bad guy. And it's so funny. The guy who you think is good turns out to be bad. and so there's some sort of manifestation there with Andy, his subconscious, the ego. And it's hard for me to really analyze this movie in a metaphysical perspective because it's so tangible already. I mean, it's a doll. It's not like Fight Club where you can obviously see, the Tyler Durden and all this stuff is a subconscious manifestation of the main character. This movie is so tangible and all that, it's really hard to really see between the lines. But Chucky himself, I think, represents for Andy a destination of happiness. He doesn't feel that the house is complete, the apartment at home with his mother, and so he wills this figure from television. He's being projected an image from television on, this is a good guy doll, this is a good guy doll. And as a child, you don't look in depth. You just say, oh, I want the good guy doll. And then it turns into the bad guy. And so it's sort of funny because that's, most children look to media and they look to entertainment, and they brought this into the home, and it turned out to be bad. Much like, young people today. They see an artist on TV, they want to get the CD, the tape, and when you really start listening to this stuff, the information that you pick up from the movies, from the music, it can manifest somebody into being something they normally wouldn't want to be. And so, there's a part 2 and there's a part 3. On the part 3, Andy's older. I don't think that's the real Andy. It's another character, but it's an older version of Andy, and the younger guy is a younger black guy, and they end up in the military school and all that stuff. And to me, those are the only real 3 child play movies. I know they came out with Bride of Chucky and stuff, but that's not real to me. It's almost like with Nightmare on Elm Street, Wes Craven's Nightmare. To me, Wes Craven's Nightmare was an authentic Freddy movie, even though it's played by Robert Englund. It just didn't appeal to me to be authentic. But see, Child's Play is an interesting film because in that era, you had a lot of gore and violence. A lot of the films, especially B-movie films, were very gory. And Child's Play definitely, I think, was main. I think everybody went to go watch that at the movie theater, so it was mainstream. But it was more of a thriller than a horror movie. It was a horror movie, but it was more of a thriller. And it's a psychological movie based on a child's perspective. And all these movies out there, they don't do that. It's usually, there may be children in it, but it's usually a psychological type of thing from an adult's perspective. But with Child's Play, it was from a child's perspective of Andy wanting the doll, Andy getting the doll, and how everybody around him tried to treat him as though he was making this story up. It wasn't real. The doll is just a doll. Even the police guy eventually had to realize it. And so it's really it's a movie that's meant for children, but it's an extremely graphic horror movie. And so a lot of parents don't want a child to watch that movie, but if somebody is not a child, they really won't have that perspective. The reason why I connect so well with the movie is because, of course, I was born in '85, so when I first watched the movie, I was like 7, 8, somewhere around there. And so for me, I internalized the movie from a child's perspective, and so now as an adult, I can still hit those key perspectives. But for somebody as an already an adult seeing the movie, I don't think they might see it from the true light as which it was written. And that goes to be said for the music in the movie too. If you listen to the music, it's more of child's music. When you listen to movies like let me think of a movie. What other movie have children? Like Children of the Corn, or even Puppet Master. Puppet Master is about dolls, but there's no children in the movie, and even the music sounds like dolls, but it's all from an adult's perspective. See, so whoever made Chucky, the movie Child's Play, they were far more intelligent than what they lead on. They were actually able to manifest a child's perspective throughout the whole movie, without the movie really being for children. I don't think most adults see a film and put that much into it. They don't analyze it like that. So that being said too, let me think. I'm looking at a picture of Chucky right now. That being said, about Child's Play, I think one of the biggest things in horror films now is they do try to target a child audience. There's a lot of films I've seen in the last. I don't even watch newer horror movies. Like if they've been made in the last 10 years, I don't watch them. But a lot of films now do try to target children, but they're not nearly as violent and graphic. But they don't actually have that intense psychological twist to it. And it's so funny because a child's going to pick up on that. A child will see Child's Play and pick up on the psychological twist without having to be an adult. But an adult can watch it and they can't pick up on the psychological twist of which a child would see it in. So it's very, I think, it's a really interesting movie.